In this video, we're going to talk about exclusive beats, when it makes sense to buy them, and how to go about negotiating the price and terms if you decide that this is something that you want to do. And make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to show you a secret for how artists can own the exclusive rights to all their future releases without paying any producer fees. So let's jump into it. On BeatStars, when you find a beat that you're interested in buying and you want to start the checkout process, these are the typical licenses that you'll usually have the option to buy. Now I have a separate video where I go through each of the different types of leases, so if you're not familiar with them, you can check that out. But essentially, if you don't at least buy the trackouts, you're going to have an amateur sounding mix, so I wouldn't even consider these ones. And even with buying the trackouts or an unlimited lease, you don't own it, you're just renting it. You don't own your masters, and the producer owns 100% of the copyright. And once the term ends or you pass the streaming limits that they set, the producer can force you to take the song down and they don't have to renew your license. But with an exclusive license, you're buying all the rights to the beat. And if you make sure that the contract's set up properly, which we'll cover in a minute, the producer will no longer have any ownership and you'll own the song 100%. But this will typically come at a much higher price point, usually between $500 to $1,000 on BeatStars. So depending where you are in your career or what your budget looks like, this may or may not make sense. Now, when does it make sense to buy an exclusive beat? If you plan on investing any money into promotion, if you already have an audience, or if you have the budget to afford exclusive beats. If you have the budget, it makes sense to buy the exclusive rights every single time, no question. It's a much smarter business decision and it will give you full ownership of this digital asset for the rest of your life. And in regards to the other two, if you already have an audience that's listening to your music, you should have some streaming revenue coming in. And that'll help offset and justify the cost of buying an exclusive beat if over time you become profitable. But if you don't have an audience and you're gonna need to invest money into marketing, it only makes sense to buy the exclusive rights because obviously it makes zero sense to invest money into a song that you don't actually own. Now, if you do decide to buy an exclusive beat, there are 4 things that you're gonna wanna negotiate: masters, publishing, term, and price. For masters, we definitely want 100%, and we should push for 100% of publishing too. Now, if you're working with a more experienced producer, they'll usually ask for 50% of the publishing. But since this is BeatStars and the majority of all artists and producers on here are pretty unestablished, we're gonna shoot for 100% of publishing, even if we have to pay a little extra for it. Now for the term, we wanna own these rights forever, or another way that's said is in perpetuity. But basically what that means is that we're buying the rights to this song forever. Now, as far as price goes, this is gonna vary, but the usual range is gonna be between $300 and $1,000 on BeatStars. You can try to throw them a lowball offer, but I recommend paying a little bit more and asking for 100% of publishing and the masters. That way you get 100% of all the streaming revenue, and if you ever land any sync placements where your song ends up in a movie or a TV show, you'll keep 100% of that as well. Now, when does it not make sense to buy an exclusive beat? Basically, the only time it doesn't make sense to buy an exclusive beat is if being an artist is just a hobby or something that you don't take too seriously. Because even if you don't have the budget to afford an exclusive beat, in my opinion, you should never pay for a beat lease because there's so many other ways that you can own 100% of the rights to your music. For example, and I talk about this in another video, the majority of producers on BeatStars are just taking royalty-free samples from websites like Splice, adding drums, and then charging you for a lease. But if you just learn how to program a few drum elements, you can go to the same sample packs that these BeatStars producers are using and just make the beat yourself. And then you'll have 100% ownership. And that's how I first started learning how to produce. First, it was just loops and samples, and eventually it grew to where I'm making my own tracks from scratch. But in either case, I own everything 100% and can reinvest all the money I'm saving in production costs into marketing. And if this is something that you're interested in learning more about, there's a free training that's linked in the description below where I cover how artists can learn how to produce, mix and master their own music in the next 30 days, as well as how I was able to grow my own music to the top 1% of artists on Spotify. But in conclusion, if you want 100% ownership, it makes sense to buy the exclusive rights. And if that's just not an option with your budget, I highly recommend learning how to take royalty-free samples and building them out into full tracks yourself. That way you're not wasting time and money by releasing music that you don't actually own. All right, so if you got value from this video, please like and subscribe, and I highly recommend checking out that free training if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one.